Hello and welcome back, and that's right, it's time for another video on data recovery from a NAS system. And once again, we're looking at Wondershare Recoverit. This is a sponsored video, but more on that later on. In today's video, we're going to be looking at recovering deleted data from an Asustor NAS, an incredibly unconventional and moreover pretty much traditionally non-recoverable means. Now, we were reached out to by the guys at Wondershare previously when we did our video on Synology data recovery there, deleting a bunch of data from there and restarting the system, and another of you wanted to know how that would play out on other systems. So today we're looking at this, the Asustor Lockstor 4 Gen 2, a lovely little powerhouse compact NAS system, and we're going to be largely repeating the steps we did previously with a few little tweaks along the way. Now, if you're not aware, you can go over to Wondershare's Recoverit page, and although it is $69, $79, $89 NECA there, I would say you can still use it for free. You can download it completely for free. So if you have deleted data or lost data one shape or form and you're looking at an enormous cost of data recovery, just before you go down that road, give this a punt, notwithstanding the fact that it doesn't cost anything to download and run, so you can actually see if any recovery is possible, but also you only pay if you want to recover, and even then it's those standalone prices, much less than paying thousands for data storage recovery. And the first 100 megs is free anyway, so if what you're trying to recover is less than 100 megs, sold, done. You haven't got to pay anything anyway, get in. So we'll carry on. We'll go into, so this is the Asustor NAS we're going to be utilising today. And just to give you an idea of the setup we're going for today, we've got inside here lots of multimedia inside these public folders. In the public folder here, we've got the Plex media server that we've accrued before. It's combinations of photos, music, videos, docs, all that kind of stuff, all comprised into those folders. They're in a shared folder known as the public shared folder. And if we make our way in to the Access Control Center and have a look at the shared folders, you can see there is our public folder there. We can go to edit, and we've made sure that there is no recycle bin on this. When data is deleted, it is deleted from the available access point, but there's more to that later on. So what I'm going to do, you can see the data inside there, and again we can check those other folders if you choose. We can go ahead, exit out of there, go back into the folder we're utilizing. Don't need two of them to be open at once, and I'm simply going to go ahead and delete both of these folders. We're going to permanently delete them. They are long gone. They're not going to be recoverable. Traditionally, there's no recycle bin for them to go into. And moreover than that, now we've deleted that data. So we're removing those completed tasks. We can go in. The traditional outer folder is there, but all of the content is absolutely gone. The next thing we're going to do, if ever you think you've deleted data accidentally, one thing you should never do is go in and restart the system. Doing that is a terrible idea, because restarting the system will result in basically the drives having to spin down and respin up, and can potentially result in new data overwriting the areas on the disks that you're using being written over where that data was formerly there. And we're doing this now to kind of push that Wondershare Recoverit software as much as we can. So as this system restarts, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the nature of recovery and what we're doing right now, because we'll hear a beep when that's ready to go. So when you're writing data onto multiple hard drives, it's worth highlighting that when you do run a deletion from most disks, and particularly optical disks, but also in some cases SSDs, when you delete, for the sake of speed and efficiency, it doesn't actually delete the data from the disks. What happens is the data is there, and then the blueprint, the map out, the kind of index that's based on all hard drives that says where data lives around there, basically wipes there. It removes the address of that data on the individual disk. And then later on, as new data is written to the drive, it'll then overwrite that securely there, and it'll just go over it, and then that data is gone. Now, the term secure there is obviously up for debate, and that's why we have a not long-running debate right now about secure erase, a big video on that soon. But what this overall means in this sense of deleting data is that data can be re-established, and indeed old drives, even drives in a RAID configuration within a NAS, can have that data retrieved, and that is where this software is going to come in. Because what we're going to do, and I've already downloaded the tool myself, I've got it there running there in the background. You might see a black screen as it asks for my permission. But what you need to do is head over to Recoverit and then try it there for free. You've got that click button and then download it. Again, all of this payment stuff, and we'll talk about why some are better than others later on in the video, but you don't have to do any of that at the beginning. You can just download it and run it first time with no payment or any of that mucking around. There's even a detailed guide there on the Asustor Recoverit, which I'll link below in the description. So the system has rebooted there. We can go back into the File Explorer. As we can see, that data is still long gone. We can go into the recycle bin there. And again, because we've not enabled the recycle bin on that folder, there's absolutely nothing to see. There's no data to recover. It is long gone. It's absolutely out the window. And this is where we pick up over to that Recoverit software. There you can see the NAS is fully completed. So what it's doing right now when you open up the app for the first time is it's scanning the local available disks just to get a kind of idea of the local client system you're running, because it can be used to not only recover data from NASes, but predominantly it can be used to recover data from well in excess of 2,000 different kinds of storage device, and that supports us up to 1,000 different file formats as well, and that can go all the way up to 4 and 8K media, I might add, as well, not just docs and photos and stuff. There's also support of things like crashed computer support, where you can utilize it on a system that's going blue screen or dying that won't reboot to create a boot disk that allows you to reverse engineer and recover a Windows environment. Obviously, that would depend on the nature of that recovery, but still nonetheless, it is going to be an accessible option that once again is available for free off the bat, and then you can choose later on whether you want to go down that road and pay for recovery, but at least see the status quo if you've got a few hours to spare. Keyword hours, more on that later. Now, as you can see, the option we of course want to go to is NAS and Linux. Now if we go to the NAS and Linux option, the next thing we click is NAS Recovery. It will try to search the local area network, but if you've not given it network access, which I generally don't with any app I've installed, this is what you'll see. But if you've already given it network access when you've installed it there, it will be able to find the NAS, but otherwise you can manually access the NAS. So what we need to do is enter that IP address, and again, don't try to do this remotely. Try to always do it locally, because doing it remotely, even if you can communicate with the NAS, there's just too many things that can go wrong when you're trying to recover data from multiple disks. Remember, in a RAID, that data is spread across multiple disks. So pop in that IP, port 22, and enter the user account credentials of your system. And again, you're going to need quite a powerful super user to access it. Why? Well, this comes back to why it says port 22, because the next thing you're going to need to do is enable SSH on the system. SSH is enabled by going into services, then going down into terminal, and from terminal you have to make sure you put a tick next to enabling SSH entry. Now, why is this? Because in order for the Wondershare Recoverit software to access the NAS, it doesn't go through the traditional login door that we see here. It has to make its way into the background there, and that's why we enable SSH. But do bear in mind that what you are doing does open up superpowers to a user who got SSH with things like PuTTY or PowerShell. So when you're done with your recovery, make sure to disable that. SSH will be disabled by default on your system in the most recent updates to ADM, but you're going to need to turn it on and then off after this when you've tried to do your recovery, regardless of the outcome. When you've enabled it there, go ahead and click apply. I've already enabled it. Make your way back into Recoverit, and you would have noted there, if you've changed the port or given it a unique port, you'll have to change it accordingly there, but by default it should be 22, and then click connect. It will slowly try to make access with the NAS, and as soon as it can establish access, it will begin scanning the system. Now, the first 50% of the recovery within Wondershare is generally a very surface level scan. It will just very quickly check, and it will any kind of light recovery there, and this is going to be when data has been moved to kind of back-end locations, or if it's been moved to a recycle bin, stuff like that. That is where it will find it. So if you do have low-level non-seen recycle bins that's used for the system for its own internal recovery, this is the first stage of when it will find it, because when it moves away from the quick scan, it goes into the deep scan. Now the deep scan, the amount of time that will take is heavily dependent on the drive media that you've installed inside your NAS. In my case, if I go into the storage manager, you'll see here I've got 4 drives inside this system, and if we go into the individual drives, you'll see there that these are all pretty big drives. These are all 14 TB Seagates. That is a lot of ground coverage to work through while it does the deep scan where it goes bit by bit. So the amount of time this is going to take is going to be a great deal more than your average 2-bay with a couple of 4 TBs inside. So what I'm going to do now is get ready to fast forward into the future while we wait for this to recover. Okay, so fast forward 37 minutes and here we are. We're still at the 50% mark because of that sheer scale of that RAID 5 14 TB combination inside this Asustor NAS. However, I've already started seeing quite a significant amount of files being recovered as it stands. For example, if we go into the photo section there, we can make our way into the JPEG, and already we're already starting to see lots of those files that were deleted originally from the Asustor NAS that we're recovering from start to re-emerge. Same goes if we go to the video. For those of you that follow the Plex Media server testing we do here on the channel, you're probably going to see quite a lot of familiar file sizes here because these are definitely the jellyfish files. It doesn't have the name, and if we go for the photos, for example, we can see the JPEGs, but even going into that detailed view, again, we've still not recovered any files. We've not had to pay for any license here, but if we choose, we can go for a preview. So for example, if we go for one of those JPEG files, or we go for one of the smaller video files, we'll be able to say, go into the video section there, go into the MP4s, go for a small-ish file if possible. Let's go for that 17 meg and select the preview option. What will happen now is using your local client system's internal resources, it will then try to do that recovery. But as you can see, the file is still incomplete there. But if we go for some of the large scale JPEG files, we're already able to see those previews start to appear. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and just show you exactly how to recover. Again, I could wait, but given that there is just so many sectors left to recover here, and I'd have to leave this laptop on likely for a few days, I'm just going to go ahead and push directly into that recovery there. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and recover all photos and all video. Remember, as mentioned earlier on, you can use Recoverit to get restoration on up to 1,000 different file formats and 2,000 different kinds of storage device there. But for now, I'm just going to select those two and then click Recover, and then it'll ask me to select a destination where I want this to be saved. And as you can see, it's even listed my network shares and network shared paths there. So for me, what I'm going to do is recover into a folder that I've already pre-created. You can see it down here. I've created a folder already called Asustor Recovery. There's nothing in there right now. I'm going to make my way into this folder and go ahead and just conduct that Asustor Recovery there. Going in to my computer, find Asustor Recovery folder, select folder, and now it's going to start restoring 321 files via that Wondershare Recoverit. Now again, the complexity of the files, the scale of those files will make a difference to how many files get recovered. Obviously, some of the smaller ones, such as photos, are going to be recovered quite quickly indeed, but it's those larger scale video ones at 1080p and 4K which are going to take more time. Now, again, if you are going to recover from your Asustor NAS using Wondershare Recoverit, you are going to need to let that full deep scan play out. What I'm showing you today is just a nice, quick, easy walkthrough on just how it's done using this software. If you don't let the whole process complete, then some files may not be completed, and larger files, more or perhaps even larger databases, may have inconsistencies or files missing, which will then result in those files, when they are recovered, not being perfect. If you think the software has done enough to recover your data, do remember you're going to need to go for one of these premium licenses in order to recover more than 100 megs. It is 3-tier, but it's worth highlighting that if you're going to go for the NAS restoration, you're probably going to have to go for the premium one because it's the only one that supports that NAS and Linux recovery. It's still substantially less than going for standard data recovery there, but just bear that in mind, you're going to have to go for that premium package. Now, what's included in that premium? Well, as mentioned, it already supports ports, that 2000 storage devices, 1000 formats and stuff. There is that restoration from a crashed PC that you can use, so you can create a bootable disk, and that also goes to those T-chip embedded Mac systems, as well as BitLocker encrypted drives and buckets as well. It works on those. But then you've got the enhanced recovery of those 4 and 8K files, as well as the identification of certain camera types. So when it comes to the more advanced restoration and recovery, you're probably going to be looking at that premium one anyway. But just remember that you don't need to go for that unless you are going to go for larger than 100 megs recovery, because that free one will include that for you. And again, trying it doesn't cost you a dime. So what I'm going to do now is fast forward to the completion of this recovery. It's only at 5% right now. I reckon, depending on the complexity of the files we've gone for, the amount of time this will take is up for grabs. But I'm going to fast forward to the completion of just recovering those small batch of files. Okay, so going forward a little bit there, you can see from the clock on the bottom right of the screen, we are now up to 76%. For those of you that are worried about my battery, don't worry, I'm going to reconnect the power. It just stops the noise of the fans there in the background while I'm recording. But we're at 77% right now, and I would say that the results are already looking pretty good. Although, obviously, as we didn't let the recovery complete in its entirety, some files are clearly not quite where we would like them to be. So, for example, if we go into the photos there of the recovered photos within that folder, and again, bear in mind it is still recovering there in the background, we can already see a bunch of my photos that I've taken previously being restored here. So again, we can sort of flick between them, and ultimately there is even that low res. Some of the thumbnails are also generated as well. But ultimately, between them, I'm quite pleased with what we're seeing here in terms of recovery there. And if we have a little look at the metadata of some of these photos, we can see if it's even maintained some of that metadata there at all as well. Going to the details, and yes, it's even maintained the metadata on those photos there. So if we come out of that, we go right back in, and this time we look into the video files there. And we'll start off by going into those WMV files here. So project files. First one, we'll go for this. I recognise that thumbnail. This is the video I used to use for when we were doing live streams of my cat just playing around there. Again, all 15 minutes there, all recovered. All looking pretty darn good to me there. And we'll go up for another one. We'll go for perhaps a lost file here. This looks like one of the videos from YouTube that's been recovered from within that folder. We can go ahead and play that one there. Skip ahead. And, it doesn't look like we're ready quite yet there, does it? It looks like the recovery is still in progress for that one, but still nonetheless it was able to start the recovery of that data from that completely deleted area of the drive. If we go into the AVI section there, we can see a lot of those TV shows from the Plex media server testing there. So we can see the intro to Mr. Bean up there. We can see Taskmaster up here. And again, as you can already see though, because these files weren't given the full extent of that recovery time within Recoverit, they're not going to be able to recover those files fully there. And that is just another example of why you're going to want to let that recovery finish regardless of the size of that file there that you're going to be utilizing. But still, nonetheless, if we go and right click, we can try and play it. But unfortunately, looking at the size of that file there, I think this isn't going to be a completed file there. And I wouldn't be surprised, as you can see there, that it's not going to play. Obviously, if you're using VLC, you can utilize that to rebuild that index. But chances are that index is still going to be located from within the files from in that recovery. And if we just let that finish the other 50%, regardless of the number of days it will take, depending on your capacity level, chances are you're going to see a decent amount of recovery there. But what I'm going to do now is fast forward to the completion of this recovery, that last crucial 20%, so we can see just what the output there of even this small snapshot of what the recovery capabilities of this software is. We can even see those files getting recovered live. But nevertheless, let's fast forward. And here we are on the home stretch. We can see we're just about to reach the end. It's just recovering that last file there, file 321 of 321. And indeed, if we go back into that Asustor recovery, we're able to see that that last file is one of these MP4s that's being recovered here. And these are a lot of those home movie files. Again, as we look at them, we can see that recovery has taken place. For example, this is quite a high res 4K recorded file here that we utilized I think a couple of years ago just at a cricket game, because apparently I'm British and that is what we do. We follow the cricket because, again, British, cups of tea and the rest. Look at these people. That came out pretty darn good. Same goes some of the other recorded files. This is actually a low res recording anyway. This is just another example of some of those files being recovered there quite well. And again, this was just with that cursory quick scan. There wasn't even utilizing the deep scan mechanic that this thing arrives with right now. And indeed, if we go into the MP5, but this MP4, but this time we actually view via information, you're able to see that there is that final file 317 of the lost files that is still being worked on and closed as we speak. But overall, again, if you are looking to recover data from a NAS, there aren't many better, options out there, not only because of that price point, and I'm trying not to sound like an overall salesman, although I will say recovering file 322 out of 321 is a bit weird, given that this is a free service that you can use and then choose later down the line to pay for your recovery. You'll be hard pushed to find a better option out there. Just bear in mind that you will have to go for that premium level if you do want to go for NAS level access. If you want to take advantage of the other stuff, such as that recoverable boot CD, you go you go for the standard, and that essential one is going to be pretty much for anything localized client based overall. Up to 99.1 there. I could skip ahead, but I think we want to see just how this ends. For now, we'll go for that and go to the Asustor recovery option there as it closes the files and completes it, just so we can see which notification and if it gives us any further information on this Asustor recovery. But again, if you've come to this video because you've lost data, there aren't many reasons not to go for this, although a number of you almost certainly will say in the comments, what about ransomware? I think Wondershare's Recoverit program, there is talk about it possibly being usable for some levels of ransomware kind of recovery, but the issue is with ransomware, when a file is adapted, it isn't really deleted, it's often compressed, but it's whether that compression creates a secondary file and then deletes the original, or if the compression of that file is still maintained in versioning. That is somewhere where the Recoverit software probably can help you, but in not all cases of ransomware is something like this going to be suitable for those recovery needs for a lot of you. And the job has completed. We can go there into the main recovery overview there. As you can see, it is saying it's recovered 326 files. But again, do bear in mind that you've got to leave it for that extra time if you want the full thing. You can go straight ahead for the open folder, or of course, you can go directly into the folder that I've already opened up, of course, and you can have a look at that recovery. And I'll be straight with you, that is a good level of recovery. Now, again, as mentioned several times throughout this video, if we hadn't even recovered some of those big old movie files there, which I'm quite pleased with. Let's see if it's actually going to play the Matrix, because let's face it, that was quite a big, complex 720p, 720, I don't think 700, maybe 750 megabytes per second. But again, overall, it has seemingly recovered that file, but it's that 2hour16 file, but it is going to hang. But still, nonetheless, I think this is a very good demonstration of just what this software is capable of. Just bear in mind that your larger configurations, those much higher TB factored NASs out there, not just Asustor, are going to need just that extra bit of time. So although it's free, it's not going to be the quickest. But what's really intriguing, as you can see there, is once we finish that recovery, the application will continue. So even if you think, oh, I need to check if that's the right one or not, we can now see that you don't have to just pause what you're doing, and you're not able to just recover and then you have to start over again. At any time, you can go ahead and pause the recovery in order to switch over to see if a file that you found is the correct one. That's a nice little feature, which you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, I did not know was included in this. That's a nice little neat extra. But this has been how to use Wondershare Recoverit to recover the data that's been deleted on your Asustor NAS. I hope you found this video helpful. Do let me know in the comments if you have. And again, there should be a link below to get the software for yourself. Again, they have sponsored this video. I've been fairly upfront about that. So if you do use it, that link down there, they will be grateful, and I guess so will I be too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.